Hello,
And welcome.
I'm Phil,
I'm Sophie.
and this is the Philosophy Podcast. We're incredibly excited to kick off a brand new series today, A History of Western Philosophy.
That's right. Our plan for this series is, well, ambitious. We want to journey all the way from the very first stirrings of Greek thought with Thales.
Right up to, well, hopefully, today's philosophers.
And for this grand adventure, we'll be using Frederick Copleston's A History of Philosophy as our foundational guideline.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource, and we'll supplement it with other fascinating sources wherever useful, of course.
As always, every source we pull from for our deep dives is listed for you right there in the description.
Exactly. So for this very first deep dive, this pilot, we're starting at the absolute beginning.
What's often called the cradle of Western thought, Ionia.
When we talk about Ionia, we're not talking about mainland Greece.
Right. We're looking at a particular place, a fertile strip of coast along the western edge of Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, basically.
While mainland Greece was dealing with a lot of instability, maybe even some cultural steps backward, Ionia actually kept a connection going with the older Asian civilization. Its cities were, well, they were vibrant hubs.
Hubs of trade, culture, and crucially, they had a fair amount of autonomy. You can imagine it buzzing with activity and, importantly, ideas.
Exactly. And that environment seems to be key.
It absolutely is. Because what happened there was, while it was a completely new kind of consciousness taking root, a huge shift in thinking.
How so?
For what seems like the first time, people really started trying to understand the world through reason. And this is the critical part. They sought this understanding for its own sake.
Not for practical reasons. Well, religious ones.
No, not primarily. This wasn't about pleasing gods or just retelling old myths or, serving the needs of some priestly group. It was this, fundamental turn.
A turn away from just doing things because they were useful or traditional.
Exactly. A turn towards understanding reality.
Yeah.
Just because.
And it sounds like there was a real freedom there to do that.
Very much so. There wasn't a dominant priestly caste dictating thought, no fixed dogma everyone had to stick to.
So they could just look around and think.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
They relied on observation, on reflection, and on the slow unfolding of logical argument. Philosophy emerged there not as a fixed doctrine, but as a process, a way of thinking.
A process driven by a core question, I gather.
Right, and the starting point was something quite simple to observe. The world is constantly changing. Everything's in flux.
Seems obvious enough.
But then comes the profound question. If everything changes, what doesn't change? What's the underlying permanent thing? The arche, the fundamental source or principle that everything comes from and eventually returns to.
Ah, okay. So that's the big question that kicked it all off.
That's the one. The search for the Urstoff, the primary stuff.
And the first name usually mentioned in that search is Thales. Thales of Miletus.
The pioneer, often called the first philosopher. We place him in the early 6th century BC. He's famously said to have predicted that solar eclipse in 585 BC.
Wow.
And yeah, other practical things are attributed to him too, like making an almanac, helping sailors navigate using the Little Bear constellation.
Right. And what about those stories like him falling in a well while looking at the stars or cornering the olive market? Those might just be generic wise man stories, but they paint a picture, don't they? Someone engaged with the world in many ways.
Okay, but what about his philosophy? What was his big idea, the one that really started the ball rolling?
His big claim, his proposed arche was water.
Water. Just water.
Just water.
Ah.
Seems almost too simple now, doesn't it? But think about the leap involved in even asking the question and proposing one thing.
True. And Aristotle mentions him, right? Saying Thales thought the earth was like a flat disk floating on water.
Exactly. Aristotle, who's one of our main sources for Thales since nothing Thales wrote survives, actually wonders why he picked water.
Okay, what were Aristotle's guesses?
Well, he speculated that maybe Thales observed that, all nourishment seems moist.
Uh-huh.
And heat itself seems to come from moisture or be kept alive by it. Seeds have a moist nature. Basic life observations.
So water seems essential for life.
It does. Aristotle also cautiously mentions maybe an influence from older myths, like the river Styx in Greek mythology being this primordial water. And, just think about evaporation. water turns into mist or air.
Or freezing, water turns solid, like Earth.
Right, so you can see how he might have thought water was this incredibly transformative element,
Yeah.
capable of becoming other things.
Okay, I can see the logic there.
The really crucial thing about Thales isn't that he said water. It's that he asked the question. He was the first one we know of to look at all the complexity, all the differences in the world and ask, what's the underlying unity? What's the one thing it's all made of?
That concept of unity and difference.
That's the genius. That's the revolutionary step. Seeking a rational explanation for the plurality of things by finding a single principle.
Did Aristotle mention anything else about his ideas?
Yeah, a couple of other intriguing fragments are attributed to him. Things like, all things are full of gods.
That sounds less scientific.
Well, yeah. And also, the magnet has a soul because it moves iron. Copleston suggests we shouldn't read this as some developed theology or theory of soul. It's more like a holdover from older, more primitive animism, the idea that forces in nature have some kind of life or spirit.
So it shows he's right at that transition point, moving away from myth, but maybe not entirely free of it yet.
Precisely. He's taking those first brave steps.
Okay, so from Thales and water, we moved to Anaximander of Miletus, a younger associate, you said, and he apparently took things quite a bit further.
He did. And Anaximander was also a practical scientist type. He's credited with making an early map for Milesian sailors. Think how useful that would be for a trading city.
Immensely.
He was even active in politics, apparently led a colony. And crucially for us, he actually wrote a book, a prose work about his theories. It survived into Theophrastus's time, so we have a better idea of his actual thoughts.
That's lucky. So what was his big idea? Did he agree with Thales about water?
Nope. His big philosophical leap was actually a critique of Thales. Anaximander basically said, hold on, the primary element can't be a particular kind of stuff like water.
Why not?
Because water itself is one of the opposites, like hot and cold, wet and dry. These opposites are always in conflict, changing into each other. That's what needs explaining.
Okay.
If everything was really water, he argued, then surely all the other opposing elements, like fire, should have been swallowed up by water ages ago. It wouldn't allow for the diversity we see.
Okay, so if it's not a specific element like water, what did Anaximander suggest for his Urstoff?
He proposed that the primary element, the Urstoff, was indeterminate. The Greek word is aperon.
Aperon, meaning?
Meaning boundless, infinite, indefinite. It was this eternal, ageless, indeterminate stuff that encompassed everything, all the worlds. It was more fundamental than any of the specific opposites like hot or cold, because it was the source they all came from and eventually returned to.
Wow, okay, that's much more abstract than water.
It really is. He even had this poetic idea about change. He saw the elements sort of encroaching on each other, and he called this injustice. This injustice had to be repaired when things dissolved back into the indeterminate boundless. He was basically taking the idea of law and justice from human society and applying it to the whole cosmos. His cosmology was also incredibly ambitious. He believed there wasn't just one world, but loads of them, innumerable coexisting worlds, all perishable. They arose from this eternal motion within the aperon, kind of separating off or sifting process, maybe like a vortex.
Multiple worlds.
Yeah. And he didn't think the Earth was a flat disk. He thought it was a short cylinder, like a drum, floating freely in space.
Didn't he have ideas about life too?
He did. Truly astonishing insights. He thought life originated in the sea, probably from moisture warmed by the sun, and that present forms, including land animals, evolved somehow through adaptation.
Evolution.
In a rudimentary sense, yes. And he made this incredibly clever guess about humans. He reasoned that humans, because we need such a long period of nursing and helplessness when young, couldn't have survived in the beginning if we started out just like we are now. So, he suggested we must have originated from other kinds of animals, creatures that could fend for themselves sooner.
That's remarkably insightful for the time. Born from fish-like creatures, maybe?
Something like that is implied. It's an amazing piece of early biological speculation.
So summarizing Anaximander, moving from a specific element to this abstract, indeterminate, infinite, the aperon.
Definitely.
And crucially, actually trying to explain how the world developed from it, with motion, separation, even ideas about life's origins.
A clear advance.
Okay, so that brings us to the third main figure of this Milesian school, Anaximenes. Also from Miletus, an associate of Anaximander, the texts say.
Now, Anaximenes, his doctrine can seem, at first glance anyway, like a step backward, a bit of a retrogression.
Oh, why is that?
Because, like Thales, he goes back to picking a specific determinate element as the fundamental Urstoff.
Ah, okay. Not the aperon. Which element did he choose?
He chose air.
Air, okay. Why air? Did he have a rationale?
He did. It seems he drew this interesting parallel between us humans and the cosmos. Our soul, he thought, which keeps us alive and holds us together, is air or breath.
The breath of life.
Exactly. So he reasoned, just as our soul, air, holds us together, so do breath and air encompass the whole world. Air is the principle of life, not just for us, but for everything, past, present, future things. Even the gods, they all arose from air.
Okay, I see the analogy. But still, after Anaximander's abstract epron, going back to something specific like air, how did he avoid the same problems Thales faced? How did he innovate?
This is where Anaximenes makes his really key contribution. It's quite ingenious, actually. He introduced the mechanism of condensation and rarefaction.
Condensation and rarefaction. Density changes.
Exactly. He argued that air itself is invisible.
Right.
But it becomes visible, it takes on different forms through this process.
How does that work?
Well, as air is dilated, or rarefied spread out, it becomes warmer, and it tends towards becoming fire.
Okay, thinned out air becomes fire.
And conversely, as air is condensed packed together, it becomes colder. First it becomes wind, then cloud, then condense it more, you get water.
Keep condensing.
You get earth. Condense it even further, you get stones.
Wow. So all the different qualities we see, hot, cold, liquid, solid, they're all just variations in the quantity or density of the underlying air.
Precisely. In modern terms, you could say he was trying to found all quality on quantity. It's a brilliant attempt to explain diversity through a single, unified physical process acting on a single substance.
And didn't he have a kind of everyday observation to back this up? Something about breathing?
Yes, that's the classic anecdote he supposedly pointed out. Breathe with your mouth wide open, the air feels warm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rarefied. But purse your lips and breathe out. The air feels cold, condensed.
Huh. Simple but clever.
A very relatable example from experience. Now, like Thales, Anaximenes still thought the Earth was flat, but he thought it floated on air like a leaf.
Floating on his primary substance again.
Makes sense within his system. And he also gave a scientific explanation for the rainbow.
Oh, what was that?
He said it happens when the sun's rays hit a really thick, dense cloud that they can't penetrate properly.
Again, moving away from mythological explanations like Homer's Iris, the rainbow goddess.
Exactly, a naturalistic explanation. Sadly, this whole incredibly fertile period in Miletus came to an end with the city's fall to the Persians in 494 BC.
The end of the Milesian school, effectively.
Pretty much. And Anaximenes, possibly because his theory of condensation and rarefaction seemed like a plausible mechanism, was often seen by later ancient writers as a key representative. Sometimes they'd even refer to the whole Milesian philosophy loosely as his.
It's genuinely fascinating to see that progression. Even with Anaximenes going back to a specific element, he added that crucial mechanism, the how. So looking back at these three, Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes, what's the big picture, the most important takeaway from these Ionians?
I think their main significance truly lies in the fact that they boldly ask the fundamental question: what is the ultimate nature of reality? It's less about the specific answers they came up with, water, the boundless air, and more about their courage in seeking that single unifying principle behind everything we see.
Just asking the question was revolutionary.
Absolutely. And it's also important to remember, they all just sort of assumed matter was eternal. The idea of an absolute beginning, like creation out of nothing, that wasn't really on their radar. This world was the only world for them.
Right.
And while we might call them materialists because they explained origins from a material element, they weren't dogmatic materialists in our sense. That whole mind-matter distinction wasn't fully formed yet.
So they were just pure intellectual explorers.
They were filled with this wonderful, almost childlike naivete of wonder and the joy of discovery. That spirit really sets the stage for everything that follows in philosophy. What's truly remarkable, I think, is how their basic search for a single underlying principle, even if it was a material one, fundamentally changed how people thought about the universe. It was a decisive shift away from purely myth-based explanations towards rational inquiry, however speculative it might seem now.
And that quest continues, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You can see echoes of it even today, perhaps, in the ongoing search in physics for a grand unified theory, a theory of everything. It's still that same deep impulse to find the unity behind the diversity.
Fantastic. This has been an incredible start to our journey through Western philosophy. Really sets the scene.
Well, that brings us to the end of this first deep dive on the birth of Western philosophy. It's been absolutely fascinating getting started on this journey.
Yes, it has. And we really hope you found it interesting too, and that you'll tune in again for our next deep dive.
Please do join us next time. We'll be shifting our focus slightly, geographically and thematically, as we delve into the equally intriguing and maybe slightly more mysterious World of Pythagoras.
Until then, keep exploring.
And keep thinking.